There he is, player one, having lost again. Game over, and good luck reaching back to the gamer's attic.
Please, what have you done to me? I can't see. Where am I? Hold on. Got it back on. What is this place?
Welcome,
Where am I?
player one.
Old school Owl?
Good to see you again.
What are you doing
You're
here?
in the warp zone.
The warp zone.
Yep. This is where we keep all the old school goodies.
Amazing. So players, you're in for a treat. We're in the warp zone. Hey guys, this is player one, and standing here with me is
Old school owl.
and we're here with our special series called the Warp Zone. And today we're gonna talk about Star Wars figures.
Yep. Vintage Star Wars figures. Got a bunch of different ones out here. We let's start with the story of Star Wars figures. When Star Wars came out, there was a big rush to produce Star Wars figures real quick, and they weren't even able to get them out in time for the Christmas holiday of that year. And as they were coming together with the ideas, the salespeople went to the different toy companies like Kenner, Galoob, and whatever the toy companies were that were around back then, and they didn't have any Star Wars figures to show. So what they did was they mocked up and they painted old Fisher-Price Adventure people. Like this guy with the beard, they would have converted him into Ben Kenobi, and this girl, they turned her into the Princess Leia's, and that's how the salespeople would go to the different toy distributors and manufacturers to show them this is what Star Wars figures are going to look like. So there's Star Wars figures, their genesis, they basically come from Fisher-Price Adventure people. And this is a little custom one that I made to represent how they went from an adventure person like that to the beginnings of Princess Leia.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. So you made this.
Yeah, this is a custom, okay, and we have some old adventure people to show. Like what I did was I just painted her with white acrylic and kind of to have the feel, to at least have a few, because they're really one of a kind. They were like done by the people in their shops, and then they were presented to the different factories as samples, as prototypes of what the Star Wars figures would look like. And of course, they were very, very different to what they thought they would look like to what they actually came out looking like.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so this is like the genesis, the origin of the Star Wars figure. And this is a little example of those samples that the salespeople use to show.
Okay. And how long have you been collecting Star Wars
Man,
figures?
all my life. Some of these are actually some of my childhood Star Wars toys. I try to keep them in good shape, and then little by little, as I got older, I tried to add to the ones I was missing and some of the new ones, because I got older, and already when the later versions came out, I was already in middle school, and it wasn't cool, so girlfriends and stuff like that. So as I got older, I got into other things too, like Transformers, and then I came back, and I remember I was telling you the story that I went to a comic book convention once, or just a regular show, not a real big one, in the old airport Marriott by the Miami International Airport, and one of the comic vendors, he had actually that toy right there. If you don't mind sneaking and grabbing it, Mr.
Of course.
One right there, that little orange box right there. Yeah.
Let's see what we got here.
So
another
this
relic
orange box,
from
from
old school.
1977. So this is what got me into collecting Star Wars toys again. As a little kid, I had the Death Star, and this is the Trash Monster, another rare, tough figure to get in the Star Wars line, and he would go in there. So I was at a comic book show, buying comics, and that was in the days of McFarlane. You remember Spider-Man 300?
Yeah.
How can you forget Infinity Gauntlet time, Web of Spider-Man back in those days? And I went to a comic show, and I saw this. The guy on his shelf had the old school Death Star compactor, not the whole Death Star because it's a big playset, but he had this, and I was like, man, I remember that was cool. And this same thing that we've spoken about in other episodes, that coolness, that feeling that it invoked in me when I was a little kid, that Christmas morning, and it made me want to start collecting Star Wars toys again. So that led to getting some of these harder ones that I didn't have. Like as a kid, this came out in 1985. I was already a little older.
Okay.
But this is, come on, what kid did not want to have Luke in Stormtrooper outfit? Okay, and then as they came along, the figures got better. They had masks, and they had coins that they came with. So, this was just, so I got this later on. This was not one of my original figures, but this is an incredible, awesome figure. Probably about $100 or so, or a little more. This is called Luke in Stormtrooper disguise.
And this is from 1985.
Yeah, 84, 85, that range.
Cool. Take a look, guys.
Yep. Let me show you some other cool ones. And of course, you all have probably heard of Boba Fett, and Boba Fett is perhaps the coolest and most sought after popular action figure for sure. He came out later on in carded version, but the first version, or the first Nexus of Boba Fett, was actually a mail-away version, and this is very hard to find. People would collect and cut off the proof of purchases, the seals from the back of the action figures, and then you'd turn in something like 5 seals for a mail-away figure. And in this case, it was a secret action figure, and he was advertised to shoot a little rocket out of his backpack. So they didn't do that, because a kid actually ingested a little rocket from one of those old Battlestar Galactica toys.
Okay.
And then they had to come up with a glued version. So now there's only a couple of prototypes and mashups that exist with the actual rocket that fires off. But this is a version that was mailed to kids with this little note and catalog, you know, apologizing for the rocket not blowing off. And
that's
this
really
is
cool.
Really tough to
that
get.
It would
So
come
this
like
is
that.
exactly the way the condition I like to get it. For some reason, mine came with 2 catalogs, and I'm not changing or missing them. Mine, this is exactly how mine came growing up as a kid back in the day. It came with 2 catalogs. It came with the note, and it came with the Boba Fett, and there it is. One of the harder
So would you
pieces to
consider
find.
this like a holy grail?
Yeah, this would probably, collectors would probably say, is a holy grail of action figure collecting. The Boba Fett with the mailer and the paperwork all original,
Amazing,
just the way
guys.
that it came with.
Intact, right here.
Yeah, intact.
Show you guys.
This
So
is
what would you
the
say
mailer
this is
box.
worth?
Difficult to say, man. If you put it in an auction, I would probably say upwards of $1,000.
Wow,
And that's being conservative, I think.
incredible.
It's just hard to find these things. It's a toy, it's a little piece of plastic, but they don't exist. There's a handful of them in the world, and there's thousands of people or millions of people that would like to have them. So the whole supply and demand thing is really what, you know, it's what somebody would pay for it.
Cool.
So we got the mailer Boba Fett. I'll put this away later. Got some other versions I wanted to share with you. This is one I didn't have as a kid either. It was another mail away, the Anakin Skywalker mail away figure. This also came out. Anakin Skywalker, what Darth Vader looked like underneath his mask, came out also later on.
Take a look at that.
Okay, and then here's another one that I did not have as a kid either. Tough to get. Please, the label's a little messed up. This is a pop-up lightsaber from the scene in Return of the Jedi where R2-D2 throws the lightsaber at Luke on the sail barge. That has a pop-up lightsaber.
Cool.
And, yeah,
Take a look at that, guys.
And I got a little Repo label there in case I ever wanted to change it, because that one's a little yellowing, but still original and awesome. So yeah, this is a tough one to find too. And and then we got Blue Snagman over here. This is perhaps the hardest Star Wars figure. He came with a play set, and when George Lucas saw that he was tall, he had Kenner go back and change the mold. And basically the corrected version, he's a lot smaller action figure. He doesn't have those big space boots.
Okay.
So this is one of the holy grails too. A lot of people are looking for this figure. It's called the Blue Snaggletooth.
The Blue Snaggletooth. Take a look, guys. And he is bigger.
Yep. Than the shorter version. Okay, and then the last one that I got here to share is something that came out in 1997. People re-released the figures, and these are just a smidge shorter. They're a little shorter than the regular ones, so you can tell if you put this one next to a Han Solo, he's a little skinnier, his face is a little smaller, the blaster's a little smaller. So this version came out in like 1997. You know, kind of like trying to reignite the Star Wars craze, and I think it did the job.
Yeah.
They got it reignited.
Definitely.
So that's like a 1997 Han Solo.
Was this
Even
before
though-
the Phantom Menace?
97, yes.
97,
Before
okay.
the Phantom Menace, right before.
Cool. Take a look at that.
Okay.
And this is really great. So thank you so much
No
for showing
problem.
this
My pleasure.
to us. And guys,
Yeah.
if you want to see Old School Al talk about any other figures,
Yep. Drop us
let
a
us
line.
know. Drop us a line, drop a comment, and
Yep.
We'll
Lots
make it
of cool
happen.
stuff. G.I. Joe, Black Hole, Indiana Jones, comics, cards, autographs, Star Trek, Moonraker, 007, Dungeons and Dragon, diecast, model kits, model rockets, non-sports cards, garbage pail kids, a little bit of everything. You tell me whatever you guys want to see, we'll bust it out, and we'll show you what's up in the
make it
world.
happen. So this is player 1, and I'm here with Old School Al, and this concludes our episode 4 of the Warp Zone. Game over.